And we're back live in the studio here in Viewpoint, high on the hill and Lazy Road. Our guests this morning is David Golwitzer and Bill Bates. They are part of the board trustees, for want of a better word, of the one of the great philanthropic organizations that has come down to Pike and Golden County in a long, long time. That would be the Woods Foundation. Bob and Joanne Woods thought very highly of their community, and have certainly exemplified their thoughts by establishing a fund which is certainly for the betterment of the entire community. And thankfully we have some folks on the board who have good, smart thinking heads, and even though he's my godson. And
but you're not prejudiced.
No, seriously, no, seriously. We really appreciate the efforts that the board makes, and we might discuss how often the board meets. Is it on demand? Well, let's take that question right there. Do you meet on a regular basis, gentlemen, or as the requests begin to, for want of a better word, pile up?
In the early years, we met as needed. We've, in the last, I believe, 3 years, maybe 4 years, we've set a regular meeting schedule, and we meet at least once a month. Mm-hmm. And that's a little deceptive, because there probably isn't a day or a week that goes by that the 4 directors don't have correspondence by email among themselves about various and sundry issues. It's not the foundation. It's not all about just making grants. We have obviously fiduciary responsibilities to keep the assets of the fund invested and safe, and try to preserve in this difficult economic time. That's not the least of our worries by any stretch of the imagination.
Oh, I'm sure.
We're meeting with financial advisors, and we're trying to stay on top of that and be mindful of our obligation to protect the assets.
You have referred to education facilities in Lincoln Christian University, Lincoln College, and the public schools. Were the Woods both very interested in education? Is that why that has come up?
They were very interested, and while they were alive, and especially while Joe was on the board much longer than Bob, we would query her on every grant request, actually, her thoughts on it, and from those collective thoughts over the years, because there were many years when you heard nothing about the Woods Foundation.
That's right.
There was a longer period when you heard nothing about it than you just recently started getting public information. Well, all this has been going on for a long time. And so from those comments that she would make is how we actually developed the philosophy of who they really wanted to support. And they had a very, very broad spectrum of who they wanted to support.
It must be helpful to you both to have known them well, so that you can develop and put forth this philosophy.
That is a real plus. I mean, we can't legally, once the assets are turned over a foundation, and this is a lot of mistake that private foundations make. They want to do things the way they always did them when they owned them. And you've read some stories about people that create foundations and they keep investing the way they did, and maybe that's too speculative. Once the assets are transferred to a foundation, it's really public. It's really public money. It's no longer Mrs. Woods. It's no longer Mr. Woods. It's never been ours. But we're bound by fiduciaries to properly preserve and protect those funds, and we use as our guiding star, if you will, what we thought they wanted to accomplish, and trying to accomplish those things within the guidelines of what the law imposes on us. It's a fine line, but one we're always mindful of, and having a history with Mr. and Mrs. Woods and having their input. I had the benefit of practicing with Bob Woods until he retired. Practicing law in our office, so I had a good feel for Bob. And then Joe was very active on our board from when it was formed in '98 until probably 2003 or 4. So we had a lot of opportunity to meet with her, and we do have a lot of their ideas. Mrs. Woods was a librarian. I mean, libraries were something near and dear to her. Parks and recreation were near and dear to her. Community support and education. We've got a vast array of things we know they were very supportive of. And that's not to say that's the only things we support, because we try to branch out and do what's best for the community and other communities.
To use 2 words, Bill, preserve and protect the assets in today's time, as you alluded to, that's got to be really difficult to, because you certainly want to take every advantage you can to enhance the fund and investment possibilities as far as growth are concerned. Pretty tough road for you guys to walk down.
Listen, suffice it to say, we lose sleep over that.
Yeah,
because
I don't doubt that. Yeah.
That's a tough part of the job. When we do have financial advisors and we do listen to them, but in this economy, it's very difficult to protect things and keep them from going down in value. But
I bet you watch those markets like hawks, don't you?
We try not to.
It just make you nervous.
It drives me crazy.
We try to listen to our advisors tell us we're in the long haul. We're not.
Yeah.
We have
Yes.
the benefit of two things when it comes to trying to preserve the assets. One, we're very long term. We're not going to have to get it out for some kid's education or some grandkid's education or for some family expense. I mean, they're there, and the assets are there for the long term. And the other thing is, as a private foundation, we don't have income taxes. So if it's something needs to be sold, you don't worry about whether it's a gain at that time, because the tax isn't going to be imposed as it would be if you and I, as individuals, sold those things.
Yeah, along that line, we also. You talk about the fiduciary responsibility. We divide those assets among two different investment advisory groups, and within those groups, they're broadly invested in a wide array of different mutual funds. We don't buy individual stocks, and so we have two different perspectives from the two different groups is about where the economy is going, what they're doing, and then within the funds that they utilize, we have different thinking process. So they're kind of sometimes counter to one another. So if one's up, one might be down, but because we're looking to preserve, on average, the assets, not a particular asset.
What did I tell you about smart management?
Well, and you got to have it because I guess nothing is forever if you don't take care of it, is it?
It's true.
And we expect this to be forever. This Wood Foundation is in perpetuity, and we're doing our best to make sure that is the case.
That's an amazing thing. The word in perpetuity. Now, you guys are young gentlemen yet, but one of these days you're going to reach my age and start backing off, and so somebody else will be administering perhaps your sons. And that in perpetuity, that means that goes beyond them.
Right.
Absolutely.
That's a long way down the road.
That's one of the planning aspects of a private foundation is the perpetuity. And Dave and I, as we get up in years, we have to have a transition plan in place so that those that come behind us will be able to understand what this foundation's for. That's why our sons, Chris Golwitzer and Blinn Bates, are both on the board, because they're the next generation, and we feel we are best able to tutor them as to what we think this foundation should be doing or should not be doing. So it's that participation from the next generation that we hope will go the next step, and then likewise it will fall on them to involve the next generation. So,
Dave, you talked about the philosophy of the foundation. That's probably one of the major things you've tried to teach your boys in this regard.
That's correct. One of the things that when you talk about grant requests that come in, our fundamental guiding principle is that we are not here to fund ongoing operations for entities. We're here to make impact grants that have some extended life return to the entity. If an organization comes in and says, gee, we need $5,000 to pay salaries and do all this for this year, if we fund that, there's no guarantee that organization's there the following year. But if they come in and say, hey, we need a walk-in cooler for the food pantry, we say, hey, that's fine. We fund that, and knowing the organization is there to operate it for the years to come.
Yes. Yes, there'll probably always be a need for a food pantry.
Correct.
Unfortunately.
Yes, unfortunately.
Yeah.
probably before we run out of time, we ought to talk about a little bit about how do you apply for a grant to the Woods Foundation.
A note that I had made myself here, that let's say that organization A decides, gosh, we need some help. Maybe we go to the Woods Foundation. How did that start then?
Well, we're seeing an uptick in that a little bit, because we think in large part because it's getting out a little bit about what the Woods Foundation is and what it does, and so people are learning more about it. For those qualifying entities that we talked about, if they think that they would like to apply, we have an application process, and they simply need to contact my office at 217-735-1234, and we'll provide them with a letter of introduction and a grant application form that they then need to fill out and complete and provide the documents we've requested to us, which basically has a lot of the legal information about their tax identification number, their exempt status, their addresses, their contacts, and the nature of what they're requesting. And we ask information about their governing boards and their bylaws and their finances, and then they submit that to us, and that's what gets reviewed. And during that process, there may be some follow-up where we contact them and ask for more information or more details, and on occasion we may ask to visit the site. On occasion we may ask them to come to a meeting and talk to us about their proposal. So there's a little bit of back and forth usually. The biggest, by and large, grants we make are ones that are applied for by organizations, be it the city, be it the schools, be it 501c3 organizations, whatever it may be. We do initiate some grants, the most notable of which is the recent one we did with the all of the school districts in Logan County. That was something we initiated, and we as a Woods Foundation sent a letter to all schools in Logan County and told them we would like to make some technology grants, and submitted an application form and asked them by a certain deadline to fill out an application and give us a grant request for some type of technology. And it worked very well. I think we had 16 of the 17 districts in Logan County apply, and everybody that applied was awarded funds that they requested. And hopefully that's going to be a leg up for those schools on some more recent technology.
And kudos to you, gentlemen, for innovating that idea. That's a magnificent investment of those funds for in perpetuity, as far as education, starting with these kids down the road, and hopefully they'll pass it down to their generations.
The thing we all know is that technology isn't
perpetuity is 30 days.
Technology has a short shelf life.
I guess that's a pretty good comment, Dave. But, perpetuity in technology is maybe 2 weeks down the road.
We were very pleased with a lot of the schools, all the schools. I mean, they all had good projects. Many of them used, and I can't tell you in any great detail the function of these in the system, but a lot of them bought the so-called whiteboards for their schools, and other schools bought iPads for classes, and we were very pleased with that response and what they implemented, and we've seen most of this all implemented now in the schools in Logan County.
That is so wonderful.
I had once.
Pardon?
I sorted an iPad once in school. I just wrote on it, and you lifted the sheet up, and it all disappeared. Carbon iPad, I guess. I'm thinking, do I dare ask, and you'll say no if I don't, the largest grant that you have been able to make, is that a question? Is it a fair question?
Well, it's public record. Our largest grant was a multi-year grant, and I should clarify that. In some cases, the grant is immediate. In some cases, we say we'll give you X amount over a series of years. But our largest grant was probably the Peoria Riverfront Museum that's under construction now, because we felt it would have a regional impact, that it may be one of the nicest museums available to residents of Lincoln, Logan County, and the kids. I can envision like the trips they make to the Lincoln Museum in Springfield. I can see them making similar to the Cat Museum and the Peoria Riverfront Museum in Peoria. So that was a multi-year grant, and so that was the largest one. Overall, though, we've done most of much less than that. Most grants are far below that, but we've had other multi-year grants that have approached $500,000 over long periods of time, though.
In referring back to our off-air conversation, anybody who does make application can rest assured that it will be addressed.
Absolutely.
Right. Right. Any applications that come in will be addressed. We're now meeting on a regular set schedule of at least monthly, if not more often. And then, of course, the contact we have with each other as directors, email is a wonderful thing for a lot of purposes, and we're able to be in contact daily, if necessary, as directors to evaluate things as they come in. it's the whole electronic thing has helped us, obviously, because we can scan grant applications and send them out. They come into my office, and then we get them scanned and sent out right away to the other directors. So they have them within moments of when we actually get them.
Yeah. We will address an immediate need that we think is something we can support. We'll address prior to the next board meeting. We don't have to wait for a board meeting to get it done.
You mentioned earlier, Judy, the Oasis grant for the new van.
Right.
That's something we probably addressed in a time span of about 30 minutes. Because we both had the same mindset. We were looking at it as a foundation before the Oasis actually even formally asked.
Yeah, there again is a story unto itself, and I think you can, in a short time, recount how that went down. There again, this was on the initiative of Mr. Bates, having seen the article about that, and so take it from there, Bill.
Well, I was looking at Lincoln Daily News on my computer at the office and saw a little squib about the need for a new van, and I had sent an email out to the other directors of the Woods Foundation suggesting possibly this might be something we could help with, and got immediate feedback from all three of the other directors that they agreed this was something that we could help the community with. Virtually simultaneously, Dominic Dalpaz came by my office and dropped off an application, he not knowing that we were working on it and us not knowing he was going to apply. I called him actually just as he was walking back into his office at the Oasis from dropping off the grant, and he was very, I might say, sheepish, and I asked what was wrong, and he said, well, I assume you're calling to tell me you're out of funds for this year and we're not going to get any. And I said, well, quite the contrary. We were already talking about this. I think we need to work together. So as Bob Jekyll said at the presentation of the funds, there was some higher power thinking about that project for both of us.
Exactly.
Well, you know, Judith, and folks out there in the etherways, we've all heard the expression, the gift that keeps on giving. This indeed is a huge gift to the community that obviously is going to keep on giving back to the community. We're very appreciative of, number one, your diligence in managing the Woods Foundation, gentlemen. You and your sons as board of director, members of the board of director. Obviously, those that have real need and that qualify are going to get a good hard look. So,
just so we don't end this show without mentioning our dear departed friend Mike Abbott. Mike was very instrumental in the Woods Foundation in not only getting it formed but serving on the board of directors. We miss him daily, but we remember his valuable input and all of the great ideas that he had in getting this going and being one of the original directors.
Thank you very much for that, Bill. That input was very, very important and very timely. We always try to end a Viewpoint with a quotation that hopefully is somewhat germane. This has to do with giving, and it said, the word alms has no singular, as if to teach us that a single act of charity is no charity at all. Thank you very much, David Golwitzer and Bill Bates, the Woods Foundation.